Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to start looking at AI and how to use a use case for using AI with Fusion in Workfront. So I'm really excited about today's video. We're going to keep it pretty basic to start. I know this is our first real video exploring, AI with Workfront via Fusion, and so I wanted to kind of start with the basics, build the foundation, and then we'll be making more and more complex videos with AI as we go along. But so definitely stick around for this video again for that more foundational knowledge, as well as I think this is honestly a really useful and applicable use case for a lot of people. So what we have going on from a high level, I'm going to start by explaining what we have built, and then I'll get into actually building it again with you so you can see step by step exactly how I build it. Again, as you can see, not a very complex scenario in this instance, but the foundational blocks will be important. But anyways, getting into what's going on. So we have basically, we're searching for a task, we're translating it, and then posting that back. So let me break it down a little bit further, and let me actually pull it up here. So the use case that this is based off of is imagine you're getting an error message and you're basically sending that error message back to the user in order for them to change whatever they did wrong, basically that caused that error, right? So this a lot of times you would see, but potentially on an HTTP request where you're pinging or posting data to another system, and it has to be the inputs have to be correct, or else you get these error messages. And so a lot of times, what you'll do is, you'll add an error handler to that module, and then you might, take that error message and send it back as a comment on that task or project, and tag that user, right? Well, we have here in this test error code field an example of what that error code might look like, right? As you can see, um, not the most intuitive message, which is, very realistic if you've seen those error messages. And so if you were to send this back to the user, a lot of times they'll look at this and they won't really understand, what it is that they did wrong, much less what they need to change in order for it to work, right? And so that's where this comes into play. So basically what we're able to do is use, and let me start running this, sometimes takes a sec. We're basically reading that field using AI to translate it into plain English and then posting it back. In this case, we're just posting it directly here into this custom field. So we have that side-by-side comparison to show you. But again, the real kind of real world scenario, what you would probably end up doing is, posting it as a comment or an update, like a directed update to that user. Also, just depends on your process, right? You might have a field that you're wanting to track that, and so a lot of options there. But the point I wanted to show is, okay, what does this look like, and really help you try start understanding the benefit that this can have to improve and speed up your processes. So now that that has run, let me just go in and refresh. Yeah, so on the left, again, we have the error code, which you can look at it, not the most intuitive, entity type, exception status, 422 message, yada, yada, yada. And then here we have this kind of plain English translation. So this error means that there was a problem when trying to create a project because the region code you used, EU West, is not recognized as valid. To fix this, you should check the list of valid region codes for your project settings and ensure you use one of those. Replace EU West with a valid region code and try again. Now you can probably envision how much easier that is for any user or for you, for anyone, right? To read that and be like, oh, now I understand what I did wrong. I can go back and fix it. A lot easier than trying to decipher what this actually means. So that's the use case. And now let's actually get into building it. So let's build it together. So I'm just going to build it here in the same um, scenario. So we're going to start with basically a search task in this case because we're just going to bring in this field. Um, so let's just build it from scratch. This is going to be a search. Let me bring it over here and let me bring this down. Um, so make sure you have your connection, record type. This is going to be a task. And then we're going to look for, this is the test custom form. Um, and we can just do the first matching record. And we want to look for the task ID. So that's how we're going to get this task. In your case, you'd probably, not be looking at one specific task. You would have it, again, usually part of this, wouldn't probably be the start of a scenario, though it could be. Um, but we'll just do that. So the source criteria is ID equals that. The output is, we really want to output this field, right? Because this is basically what we're using in this case as the input for the next module, which is that OpenAI module. So this is going to be the error code. Okay. The next, we're going to use the OpenAI module, and we're going to use the create a chat completion. So in this example, obviously we're using OpenAI. In your situation, you can use any LLM that is approved. OpenAI is going to be the easiest, just in the sense that there is the module already built in Fusion. So if you're going to use any of those other AIs, you're basically going to need to use a custom HTTP request in order to create that webhook to send the data to that LLM and get it back. So just slightly more complicated. You just need to configure it manually, but very doable. So for this case, we're just going to use GPT-4o mini if I can find it right here. Again, you can use any model, but for this, since there's just a little test, is using this small, really inexpensive one. So when you're setting up this OpenAI module, this is the important part. So you have your messages. So you're going to first want to look at your input, and then basically describe your output. So for the input, so the first you're going to set this to system, and then here for content, we're actually going to put the um, prompt that we're going to use. So I have it already put together here. So I'm going to copy so you don't have to type it all out and paste. So for the content, this is again that prompt that you're giving to the assistant saying, okay, you're an error translator. Your role is to take an error message, translate it to simple, plain English that anyone can easily understand. Keep your responses short, explain simply what the error means and how it can most likely be solved. So that's just what we put. You can obviously, tailor this if there's any specific criteria or any specific kind of instructions, you can add it here. That's going to be the first part for giving that prompt for that input. And then the next part for the input, you're going to be, for your role, is going to be the user. And then here for the content is going to be the actual message. And then you can just save that. So basically what you're looking at here is, again, on that system, that's the instructions, that prompt that you're giving to the AI assistant. And then here, this user content is the actual message then that's going to take this prompt. So this is going to be dynamic, as you can see, it's a variable, and this is static, right? It's the instructions that are going to stay the same. Obviously, you could make this dynamic as well. You could make this a variable and you have different factors before this that are determining what those instructions are. And in this case, we're just going to keep it pretty simple. So that's how you set that up. Then let's just do this last one real quick. So we'll just do an update a record. And I'll just do this real quick. And then for the field, we're going to map it to that AI output. And then here, we're going to need the output from this. And you notice we're not getting it yet. So we're just going to wait a sec. And let's just save this. And we're going to unlink this. And we're just going to run this first so you can get the output from this module. So yeah, let me run it real quick. Let me get rid of that. That won't affect anything yet because we're not posting anything. We're not, pushing any data here. But let's just run this and give it a sec, and that will give us that output so we can then map it in this next module. So I'll just let that run. Perfect. So that's just finishing. Okay, so we have this output. So if I look at it, we have the output here, and we have the message right here. So we have content. This error means that when you try to create a project, there's an issue. Um, Very similar, obviously not identical, but a very similar response to the last one we saw. And so now if we connect those here and open this back up for this output, now we have it here. So let's just pull in here. So under those choices message, we have the content right here, which you can see this is what we're just looking at. So let's put that and hit save. And so we didn't post anything, so that will stay empty. But just to show you, this is all empty. So now let's run it one more time. And now it should take that response and it'll actually push it to that task just like it did before. So perfect, that ran. Let's just refresh this and open this. And there it is. So again, we have this error means there's a problem with the EU West that wasn't recognized. So there you go. Like I said, this was a pretty simple and straightforward example, but wanted to show that as that foundation. And honestly, despite it being, fairly simple, it's honestly very powerful, and super helpful. This specific use case, translating error messages, um, but also you can, think a bit broader and say, okay, how can we take this basic concept, this basic framework, and then tailor it to our needs, right? So definitely think of that. If you have any, questions or ideas, definitely feel free to reach out. Always happy to connect. So we can leave a comment here on YouTube, or try to be active on LinkedIn as well, and respond to messages there. So definitely feel free to find me on LinkedIn, send me a message directly, or you can always reach me via email as well. And I'll leave all that in the description, so you can easily find that. But anyways, hopefully that was useful. And definitely stay tuned for future videos where we're going to continue exploring AI and showing a lot more really cool and exciting things that you can do now with AI, with Fusion, with Workfront, and bringing all those together. So I'll catch you on the next video.